Strong Enough merch is now available. Go to strongenoughpod.com and check out all the stuff that you can get so that you'll have those daily reminders that you are strong enough and you are worth it. Welcome to the Strong Enough podcast, where we talk about the challenges and celebrate the triumphs of people just like you. I'm your host, Claudia. Today's guest is going to share how she went from what most would consider successful down to having literally nothing. When many would have given up, she persevered and is now her happiest and healthiest self ever. And she's going to give you some tips and tricks on how you can do the same. Please help me welcome ZofiaRennea Morales. Zofia, how are you this morning?
Fabulous. How are you this morning, Claudia? I'm so thrilled to be here.
I am thrilled to have you. And just in the few minutes that we've already been chatting, I feel like we are longtime best friends.
Oh, me too. And I feel like we probably should have pressed record on this, like when we joined the call almost. Your listeners have missed so much good stuff already, but I think we're going to circle back to some of it. So
I think we will. And, maybe we can throw out some tidbits for them on social media so they don't miss all that good stuff.
I like that idea. Just kind of clip those out and pluck those into the promotional cycle. I love that.
Exactly. Well, I don't want to keep the audience waiting any longer because we've already teased them a little. So I would love it if you would tell them a little about yourself.
Oh, now you've asked the question that will take the next 50 minutes. But let's jam all this into a nutshell. Okay. I did not start this way. I'm not one of these woo people since birth kind of things. I had that beaten out of me early through what I would consider kind of a religious abuse sort of childhood, extremely fundamental. Mm-hmm. Fundamentalists do tend to, err towards the abusive side of things. And so that caused me to do a number of things, shut down my gifts, distance myself from anything religious, like as far as humanly possible. Mm-hmm. And I grew into a very, logical, humanistic, rational minded kind of person. Because that, in my world, in that moment, that was the most, compassionate space I could move into with the approval of my parents. Okay. Because my mother was the extremely religious one. She also highly valued education. And so that's why I had that as a doorway out. Mm-hmm. And so much of my life that served me very well. Okay. I got advanced degrees. I had a bad husband, divorced him, met and married my reward husband. Yay. Woo! We spent several decades as dinks, double income, no kids, professionals, working our way up our respective corporate ladders and homes and investment properties and all the good stuff. Okay. But I was ignoring a few things. I was ignoring invitations of my soul into a more intuitive and inspired way of living. And almost really deliberately, it was almost like, how the kid doesn't want to hear you and they close your eyes and they, I don't hear you. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It was that sort of ignoring the invitations because I knew that the life I was living wasn't fitting me. Because I would come home from a successful, long, stressful, all the things day in the office. And I would look at my husband and go, are we there yet? Meaning, have we reached retirement age so I can stop doing this shit? Right. So that's the first thing I was ignoring was this life is not fitting me. Messages that were very clear in my mind and in my body. And the other thing I was ignoring was the fact that I did not feel good. Mm-hmm. I was exhausted all the freaking time. And this isn't something that arrived when I arrived in corporate or grad school or whatever the thing was. The exhaustion arrived when I was in grade school.
Wow.
Okay. And I've been to doctors over the years, but never like made it a central core of my mission to figure out why I'm so freaking exhausted all the time because no one else seems to walk around dragging their ass 100% of the time. So I was ignoring that in that I would periodically bring it up to the doctor and they would periodically look at, well, mono or Epstein-Barr or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
all the things, right? And so they checked out all of the lupus and what do I want to say? All of the autoimmune kind of
Right.
related stuff.
The usual
Okay.
suspects.
The usual suspects, and none of the usual suspects were coming up. They even tested me for Lyme. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that came back and said, no, not that. Okay, fine. So, you know, I've got this quote unquote picture perfect life, right? I'm checking off all the boxes. I've got the education, I've got the success, the career, and houses and investments and 401ks and all the things. The thing that I don't have is my health.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I don't have is happiness and satisfaction with what I'm doing. And the other thing that I don't have is children. Okay. And not for a lack of trying. Spent a great deal of money on that front as well. Ironically, farther down my story, I got the answer to why that was the case. But part of the reason that I was putting off trying to figure out why I was so freaking exhausted all the time is I wanted to spend the time and the money trying to have kids.
Mm-hmm.
The irony of this will become apparent later.
I feel like I have a clue as to where we're going.
Yes. And so that's kind of where I was. And I made some changes in my career, hoping that this would make me feel more fulfilled, right? Because I started in a Fortune 100 bank operating international data centers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That the machines have uptime requirements. Okay. So that's a lot of stress just to start with. But when you consider that some of these systems, when they went down, the amount of penalties that would be incurred and interest incurred on the transactions that were not coming through
Mm-hmm.
were more than I'd have made in my entire career at that bank
Wow.
in a handful of minutes. Okay. So to say that there was stress, yeah, like through the roof stress. Okay. And so I needed out of that. I needed a job where I didn't have two phones on my desk and one on my hip and was on them all at the same time. I needed
Mm-hmm.
something that was not that. And so I started to kind of follow the hints of my joy. Your soul will leave breadcrumbs for you, and the little things that bring you joy in your life, these are part of what you're here to do in this world. They're part of your mission, even if you don't know how all the pieces fit together yet. And so what I noticed was that I enjoyed helping people understand more about money. This is
Mm-hmm.
the computer geek in the back of the
Right.
bank, right? And so I made the transition to a more customer facing aspect of banking. I left the Fortune 100 and went to the Fortune 500 so that I could be more customer facing, and eventually moved into mortgage as my interface with
Mm-hmm.
the customer and my entry into the world of introducing people to how do you get financial stability? How do you make money work for you? How do you make sure that your house is not going to sink you when you have a financial reversal? Because that has become really common in our world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I followed my joy into that, which was great. And I worked in that area for a decade or so. But these things that I've been ignoring, um, they started to catch up with me, right? I
Mm-hmm.
ran out of runway on the baby front. Okay. And that was a huge warning for me. When I turned 40, it was worse than average. Let's just put it that way. this, there was no, oh, 40 is the new 20 for me. It was like end of my freaking world because motherhood is not going to be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. that was really hard. Now, I've got some perspective on that now. I can actually talk to you about that. There were many years I couldn't have even said it. People would ask, well, do you have kids? I'm like, no, we had technical difficulties. That's as close as I could get to that issue
Mm-hmm.
because I discovered if I said we'd had trouble having a child or infertility, then all of this advice would come that I'd already had taken, explored, and it just would like rip the wound open.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't even put the word baby in it. We had technical difficulties. End of conversation. Um, so that's kind of where I started out from. And when you ignore your soul, it will at some point stop nudging you. Okay. And it will start smacking you. And then if you don't listen to it smacking you, it will come with a freaking 2x4 and whack you upside the head. Okay.
That is uncomfortable.
It is hugely uncomfortable. And when your soul wants you to have some time to really think about things, it will arrange for the most effective way for you to do that. Now, the most common hall pass that we have in this world is to be sick or injured.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Society is like, okay, fine, we will allow you to sit over there in the corner. You will get social support for that. There are financial supports even for that, depending on your circumstances. And so oftentimes when the spiritual 2x4 comes, it comes in the form of an accident or an illness. And in my case, it came in the form of illness and bankruptcy. Okay. Because I would have continued to chase my tail
Mm-hmm.
and would not have broadened my understanding and my approaches to what was going on with my health if I'd had the cash to continue just paying conventional doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so that's what it took for me to go down the road my soul wanted me to go down. Okay. I had started looking outside the silos. Okay. And when I say silos, it's because traditional medicine, you've got basically two kinds of doctors. You've got your generic doctor, your GP, general practitioner, okay, who's supposed to be the one that looks at the entire picture. And then we've got the specialists, right, who sit in their silos and I know everything about this particular system, this particular function. And the problem right now with conventional medicine is our overview doctors, our GPs, our family practitioners do not have the time to do the job you need them to do. Okay. Because of the way insurance is set up, they've got 15 minutes in the room with you. They have to be super duper focused. We're going to hit the thing that's the problem for you, and then we're moving on. And it's a bad system. It's a broken system. And unfortunately, even our general practitioners, we don't train them to be holistic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the thing that I needed to do, and I discovered this before I even got into the extremists, was I needed to play that sort of quarterback role in my medical journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I would invite you, if you have been struggling with a complicated medical journey, to accept that you have to be one of the experts on your medical panel. Okay. Now, I'm not saying you have to learn all the technical biochemical and medical language that goes around with it, but I will say that it will help you if you will make that effort,
Mm-hmm.
because it will help your researching of what's going on and your ability to put the pieces together. But you don't have to, because you are the expert in the room when it comes to how your body is responding. And that's a huge portion of the puzzle. And if you are seeing medical professionals who don't respect and receive the information you're giving them about how your body is responding, it's time to go find a new medical professional, because there are two experts in that room and only one of them is an actual healer. Okay. The doctor is your technician, your font of technical knowledge, okay, and your font of possible pharmaceutical options or surgical options, because this is what conventional medicine traditionally will offer you. Okay. The healer is sitting inside of you. Okay. And you're the one who has the ability to really figure out the puzzle. And so I would encourage you to get a notebook and track how you're doing around your condition. You know, hey, today is this. I woke up feeling pretty good. You know, I exercised for 15 minutes because that's what I could manage, and I did this, and I had a healthy breakfast, and I was pretty exhausted by whatever time. Keep track of all that stuff, because that's where you find the patterns that help you to lessen the condition and ultimately probably to relieve the condition. Okay. And how you feel about your condition, how you approach your condition, and how empowered you feel about your condition makes all the difference in how it is living with that condition. And how you feel and how you approach is entirely between your ears. It is within your control. A lot of us have been raised to feel like, well, my brain just thinks these random thoughts and I have no control over that. You have control over the patterns you allow to run in your mind. I know this is probably new information for some people. And when I was first introduced to this, I'm like, no, I don't. And so I'd like to acknowledge you if you're having this no, I don't reaction, or if you've been told that your brain chemistry is such that you will never have control. I have good news for you. You have control even over your brain chemistry. And so if you're having a brain chemistry issue, okay, and they've got you on antidepressants or anti-anxiety or anti-whatever other emotion thing they're working to help you stabilize, go get connected with what's her name? Amy Ayasko, Yasko. She's not a medical doctor. She shares a degree with me. She is a biochemistry doctor, okay? And she understands how your brain turns on and turns off the neurochemicals. And if you're, I think of it as blueprints, right? Your DNA, your fundamental blueprint on file with the county, okay, is messed up, okay? You can actually get a working blueprint, the one that you take on site and you use every day in the form of RNA drops that will allow your brain to, ta-da, balance itself. So I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you this is the solution for you, but I can tell you talk to the doctor who's prescribing the stuff. Tell them you're going to go and get an analysis done with this lady. She educates medical professionals. So if they have questions, they can have that conversation with her. They can go through her material and understand how this stuff works. And maybe there's a chance you won't need that stuff long term. So I would encourage you to advocate for yourself, because you can control what goes on between your ears, whether directly or indirectly, whether you do it through daily affirmations, or if you go to my favorite, a hypnotherapist. I've just been certified because I love this modality so much, because it allows change, the kind of change you would see in psychotherapy, only like 100 times faster. Okay, that there was a study done, and I need to just put this reference like on my desktop so I can just look at it and I can tell you the citation. I don't have that memorized, but I do have the results of the study memorized, and that is they compared a pool of people who'd gone through 600 sessions of talk therapy.
Wow.
That's a shit ton of sessions if you think about I'm doing, even if you're doing 2 a week, that's
It's a lot of
6
copays.
years.
Yeah.
That is a shit ton of copays.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Okay. And they compared that with 6, count them 6, sessions of hypnotherapy. And for the presenting problem, the thing that brought you into therapy, traditional therapy, 38, call it 40%, will be generous. 40% improvement in the presenting problem. So if it was a self-esteem thing, if it was I pick bad boyfriends, if it's a setting boundaries thing, if it's a I just have these repeating negative thoughts that I wish would go away. Okay, 40% improvement in that. Now, I'm not going to poo-poo that. If you've been having any of those issues and you can improve them by 40%, hella freaking Luya. Okay, go you. Fabulous. Whoo! Okay. 6 sessions of hypnotherapy. You want to take a stab at what the effectiveness of that was?
I'm gonna go like 70%.
92%.
Wow.
And we'll be
Wow.
generous. We'll be generous. Let's just say it's 90%. Which one do you want to spend your money on?
Yeah, I'm 6 sessions for 90% all the way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even if your copay is $25, multiply that by 6. Okay. And assuming that your health insurance will allow you that many sessions, which is a huge assumption, they cut you off at like 20.
Right.
Okay. And some of them don't cover it at all. 6 sessions of hypnotherapy, even if you got a top tier hypnotherapist one-on-one work at $500 a crack, $3,000 versus how many copays?
A lot of copays, and that could be shoes. I could buy shoes with those copays.
Absolutely. And you'd get a lot of shoes after you paid for your $3,000 worth of hypnotherapy.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, even if insurance doesn't cover it, totally freaking worth the investment, right? Yeah. And I think that's the other thing that I'd like to bring forward out of my story, which is insurance handcuffs you. It really does. And one of the best things I ever did for myself is I went, I don't fucking care if insurance is paying for it. If this is the thing I need to do, then this is the thing I'm going to go do, and I will figure it the freak out. So that's kind of my backstory. Okay. And then I ended up sidelined, as I mentioned, health and bankruptcy. I had gotten to the point I could not work, not because I was exhausted, but because my brain was starting to fail. Literally starting to fail. Not, oh, I don't remember where I put my keys, but I literally don't remember the words to tell you how my day was.
Wow.
Okay, this is not some exotic medical term. This is like, how was your day? Where did good go, right? Good should be right there. It was fine or it was crappy. No words for that. And that's concerning at scary. 45 years old, and very scary. And so now it's like, I must find the answer to this problem. And my soul walked me through a number of, what I want to say, I call them running at walls kind of moments. Okay. I didn't realize the pattern until later. But as I was going through this journey, there was this knowing that I needed to go a certain direction. Okay. And I can't even articulate to you as a scientist why I had decided I needed to follow this knowing, but I knew that was the direction we needed to go. Okay. And so there were a number of what should have been mutually exclusive kind of things that happened all at the same time. And so I was really ill. We just relocated. My husband had just landed a job that was supposed to be for 5 years, 3 to 5 years. And after 12 months, it became clear that they had lied to him, not about the amount of money that they had raised, but the amount of money they had left.
Oh, wow.
And they did not have money for 3 to 5 years when they hired him. They had money for one. And so here you go, 12 months after relocation, you have not recovered from, buying the house and moving the stuff and doing all the things. And sorry, bye. Now, this was the third or fourth sort of changing in a way that his gigs were getting farther apart and they were getting shorter. And so when this happened, we did not have any reserve in our bank account because we had taken every last available cent we had and put it into this relocation because it was do this. So we did it. We had the employment for a year. And then guess what? We got the bankruptcy too. I can't work because I can't cook dinner. I can't tell you how my day was. Okay. There's no way I'm employable. I don't care what you want me to do. I'm not employable. And my husband's been picking up my slack around the house. And so when he lost this job, when this company ended, which is basically the situation, it wasn't even lost a job, like he had some responsibility.
Right.
We literally had zero. We had zero income and zero in savings. So our option was bankruptcy. And that's not anything I ever saw myself doing. I was in financial education. By God, I know how to budget. I know all the things. I did all the things.
You taught other people how to do
I taught other people how to do the things. But when your income goes to zero, you got nothing to budget. I don't care how financially skillful you are. There's nothing to budget. Something has to happen on the income side of things. And so we knew two things in that time. He had to go back to school to get another degree so he could move into a different form of employment. And we had to declare bankruptcy. Now, how you do both of those things at the same time was like, I have no idea, but we went down both of those roads together. And I was led to a bankruptcy attorney who helped us solve the going back to school problem, at least short term, because we did have a tiny bit of retirement funds. And he figured out a way we could access those funds without the accounts becoming subject, or what do I want to say, available to the bankruptcy trustee to seize.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And so we weren't completely at zero, but this is like now we're completely mortgaging our future as well. So he figured out how to make graduate school start, which was fabulous. And he also told us we had to take the payer bankruptcy to make this work. Did I mention zero income?
Zero. We are at zero now.
Yeah. How do we do a payer bankruptcy on zero income? And so I had a conversation with him and he's like, one of you needs to become employed for $50,000 a year. That will get you the shortest payer bankruptcy that you can have. I'm like, all right. So went home, shared this information with the husband, and he said, I'll probably shoot way past that, but okay, whatever. And kind of filed that information away because typically he works for like 3 times that amount. And so he didn't think that would be happening. And he went back to help a buddy with a professional conference. Wonderful. So he goes to the conference and he's helping him, man the booth and talk to the people and do the things. And in the off hours, he's reconnecting with people in the area because it's back to a place we've lived previously. So he's reconnecting, old home, all this kind of stuff, and came back from that conference with a job offer to partner with a guy to expand his scientific staffing firm into consulting. And it was, drum roll please, $50,000.
What a coincidence.
What a coincidence. And so, okay, great. So we've got income for the payer bankruptcy. We've got him enrolled in grad school. The problem is now we live in Arizona. We can't move or it messes up our bankruptcy. Okay. And so he's got a job back where we came from. Don't know how this is going to work because he needs a place to like live and be. We've got $50,000 a year. There is no spare money here. Okay. The thing about payer bankruptcy is the trustee gets everything beyond what it takes to pay the mortgage and keep the lights on and buy your drugs. I mean, that's kind of it. You can eat a little bit.
Occasionally.
Occasionally, not very well. And so, okay, fine. I don't know how we do this, but I had been employed in outside sales when we were back in that area. So I sent an email to everybody I knew, and it was a long list. And we had agreed as a couple, we weren't going to try and hide this or make like nothing was going on. It's like, it is what it is. If someone needs to know, we will just share it. And so this email went, here's our situation. We need a place for him to be so that he can accept this job. I'm looking for a guest room, a shelf in your refrigerator, Wi-Fi connection, and a parking spot for the car. He's quiet, he's tidy, he's well-mannered. You'll never know he's there. No nasty habits, doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, but he's allergic to cats, so no cats.
And cats are crazy, so.
Well, okay, that's a different conversation. Some people like crazy. So I sent it winging off and I got a whole bunch of, oh no, I wish I had a guest room, or I just put my niece in it, or, you know, all the reasons why not. And then I got one email that was far more than I ever expected, because it came in at my price point, which, if you'll recall, is a big fat zero.
Right, free 99.
Free 99, exactly. And the reason it was free 99 was it was a condo. The market was completely upside down. It was underwater. Her mother had passed away. It was in an over 55 community. You were not allowed to rent these units out. And so she was trying to keep an eye on this empty unit so that it remained in condition so that when the market did turn, it would be saleable. And she had too many balls. She's one of these professional career and 4 children, and 2 of them with special needs. And she's got a sister with special needs and aging parents. And she's like, I just can't keep track of this aging condo. So it would be a blessing for me if he were to move in and keep track of it and keep it in good shape. Pay the utilities. Like, sweet. So we had a place for him to live, and we had health insurance that I couldn't use because it was only for Indiana, and I'm in Arizona. And so it was a while before I got to use it. But eventually we got the bankruptcy filed, and I was able to go and stay with him in the condo, which was a beautiful thing, and use the health insurance. And once I had the health insurance, I went looking for a zebra, looking for a functional medicine doctor that would take insurance, because I had determined that I needed a functional guy, because the functional guys at least understand biochemistry. Oh, this was something that freaked me out. And you can run this test maybe with your medical professionals, but I didn't realize I was even running a test at the time when I was in grad school, I would go to the doctor and they, go through all this stuff. And they're like, well, what do you do? Biochemistry. Get my PhD in biochemistry. Wow, I am really impressed. Biochemistry almost flunked me out of med school. I don't know how many times I heard that. And then they turn around and grab their prescription pad and they're going to write out a prescription for something that's going to change my biochemistry.
Right.
And I was so thankful when I finally went into corporate and I didn't have to share that and learn that about the doctor that was sitting with me, because it freaks me out. And I think it should probably freak you out too.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
So I was looking for a functional medicine person because even if they're not, even if biochemistry was a challenge for them, at least they understand that there is interplay, there is cause and effect, and this thing that they're giving you for your toe fungus is going to have effects on your liver. It's going to have effects on how you metabolize. It's going to affect whether you store fat or you dump fat. Okay, it has all these ramifications. It's going to affect you, perhaps your mental health or your ability to sleep, and they're much more cognizant of this kind of stuff. So I determined I needed a functional guy, and I found my zebra, which was fabulous because he found my problem. Well, he found several problems. He solved quite a few. In the course of looking for the one I was trying to solve, I discovered that I have a problem with balancing my brain chemistry, which explained why I struggled with depression all my life. It also explained why my mother has a rigid OCD worldview. It also explains why my nephew has autism, and it also explains why my sister has a schizophrenia diagnosis. Because we all have the same brain defect, it just expresses differently. And so the beautiful thing was, once I learned that the plans on file with the county were wrong
Mm-hmm.
and got my working blueprints, I was able to get off antidepressants. Whoo! Now that was a trip. I got to tell you, be cautious coming off of antidepressants, but know that it's for a discrete period and it does get better. But that to the side, solved that problem. We eliminated heavy metals as a problem. We eliminated a bunch of other stuff. And we got down to, well, I think it might be Lyme. And I said, been tested for that.
Mm-hmm.
Came back negative. He says, there's a problem with the Lyme test. Okay. And I'm going to put it into English terms for you guys. Okay. There are two things that make a test effective and useful. One is it has to be very specific. It has to have specificity, meaning when it comes back positive, it is in fact for that specific thing and nothing else. Okay. And Lyme has this. If it comes back positive, it is absolutely conclusively Lyme. It is not anything else. So check one. The other thing that it has to have is a level of sensitivity that allows you to see that the thing is there that it's looking for. And this is where the Lyme test comes up short. It is not sensitive enough. You have to have a massive, full-blown case of Lyme that's in a particular life stage of Lyme, because it has three. If it's not in that life stage, if it's not a high enough level, it will come back negative, because it's not sensitive enough to see the little tiny levels that are floating around in there. So the thing with the Lyme test is this: if it comes back yes, you absolutely have Lyme disease, and it's at the right stage, and it's pretty good case. Okay. If it comes back negative, you are not in the clear, because you could be in a different life stage, or the levels could be low enough that it's not detected. And if you've had it for a long time, odds are really good that it's both of those. And I have apparently had, at that point, had it for a very long time, like since grade school.
Mm-hmm. Since that exhaustion problem.
Yes,
Coincidentally.
exactly. Coincidentally. And I almost found this problem once upon a time, when I was between undergraduate and grad school. I spent some time working in a lab, and I had run across an article where they talked about Lyme disease. And I was reading through all the symptoms, and I'm like, check, 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 check. I'm like, okay, how do I find these guys, right? Because I think this is the thing I have. And they go through this whole thing about the symptoms of what it is. And then the ending paragraph said something to the effect of, but don't be concerned if you think this might be you, because it's limited to this specific little deer tick that occurs in the northeast of the US and nowhere else. So don't go running to your doctor thinking this is you. Well, what they did not know at that time, and what they have discovered since, is Lyme can be carried by any tick. And that makes it pandemic because there are ticks in all areas of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have ever been exposed to a tick, there's a pretty good chance that you could have this. And so I did not pursue Lyme farther after that article. And then when I was tested for it and it came up negative, two strikes, I clearly don't have this. But it turns out that I did. And the beautiful thing about the functional doctor is they generally have what I want to say, a solution to offer you as opposed to a drug.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular doctor was the regional expert in Lyme. And so there are two other tests you can run for Lyme disease. He ran both of them, and I came back screamingly positive on both of them. And so when it came back screamingly positive, he's like, here's your first round of antibiotics, and here's the plan that I take people through. And it's a 2-year plan. He's got a 70% success rate with it, which is pretty good in the world of Lyme disease because it's a hard thing to get rid of. I mentioned 3 life stages,
Mm-hmm.
and there's only one that's really susceptible to antibiotics. And so it's a bugger to try to get rid of. And so they rotate the antibiotics because resistance and this kind of thing. And Lyme is toxic when you have it, and it gets worse when you kill it. Because when it's alive, it just kind of dribbles the toxins out. When you kill it, it breaks open and releases them all at once.
Wow.
And so you go from feeling like poo to feeling like the ultimate dung shit pile. If you thought it was bad before, I started on the antibiotics and I stopped being able to sleep. That's how bad the toxicity was. And so I went from not functioning to kind of just lay in the bed, dysfunctional, everything hurt, exhausted, unable to sleep. So you've got that whole blurry brain thing going on. And it was a world of misery. Okay, but it's like, okay, I got to go through this. I'm going to get rid of the thing and I'm going to feel better and I'll be able to get on with my mission. Because even at this point, I had this feeling there was something I was supposed to be doing. There's something important I came here to do, and this is going to completely keep me from doing this. I couldn't tell you what it was. Okay, no way I could articulate it. I couldn't say, I'm here to save the world by, no clue what it was, just this conviction. And I'm sick as a dog. And I'm doing everything I can to kind of pull it together and halfway function. Mm-hmm. And I determined that the first thing I needed to do, and it wasn't an easy determination to come to at this point. It's like swimming through Jello. I'm going to have to call the insurance company and find out how much of this plan they're going to cover, because I did run the calculator on it. Mm-hmm. And that was a challenge in and of itself. And I couldn't tell you the exact number that it came to, but all of the totals were around $28,000. So I'm figuring plus or minus a certain margin of error, that's about what this plan is going to cost for the first year. 2-year plan.
Oh gosh.
In bankruptcy, hubby's making 50 grand. Okay. We're clearly not coming out of pocket for this.
Not happening.
Not happening. So called insurance. Insurance lady answers the phone. I said, this is what's going on. Here's my diagnosis. I've got a plan. I'd like to understand what you're going to cover. Her exact words seared into my brain. We don't believe in chronic Lyme. Isn't that fucking convenient for you?
We don't believe? Like, bitch, you're just answering the phone somewhere.
Yeah, no, it's the the insurance's
Right,
position on
right.
it, right? And to be fair, there is some controversy in the medical field about, well, is it really this way? Okay, it takes a while sometimes for what I want to say the center of conventional medicine
Mhm.
to receive the information that's coming in, kind of like it's only from deer ticks in a certain area of the
Right.
world, right? And so there's a lag time of a few decades, oftentimes. So a lot of times when you're dealing with someone who is on the cutting edge of something, there will be a lot of unacceptance of it from their colleagues. And so it's not terribly surprising that insurance is right now taking this position because it will be the last thing that accepts it.
Mhm.
Okay, the medical profession will accept it decades before insurance will go, okay, yes, it really is a thing. Yes, we accept it's a relative of syphilis. Yes, we accept that it can, in fact, eat your brain, because that's what uncontrolled syphilis does. And it's not a big stretch to go, wow, that might explain why I can't remember any of my words.
Right. Right.
And so I was getting off that phone call with her, and I'm getting lessons all the way through this. Okay. And one of the lessons that I got that day was around the questions that you ask the universe. Because we're going through this conversation, and she's telling me we cover 60 days of antibiotics, full stop. Don't expect anything further from us. And I'm thinking in my brain, yeah, can it get any worse than this?
Mhm.
How many of you have thought that question? Own it. Raise your hand right
Yes.
now. Can it
100%.
get any worse? Okay. And I immediately got the answer to that question because I'm going, okay, fine. 60 days of oral antibiotics, and obviously the copays on the doctor visits. And she says, oh, you need to know this. Your doctor is no longer in network.
Of course. Of
There's my
course.
answer to my question.
Mhm.
And so that was like this kind of almost last straw for me moment. I'm like, well, Jesus, now what am I going to do? I at least have a freaking diagnosis after decades of chasing this problem. And now you're telling me that I can't have the solution to this problem basically because I'm in bankruptcy for another 3 years. You're not going to cover jack shit right now. And the clock is counting down on my lifespan because, boy, once it starts to eat your brain, this is not good. I won't be here 3 years from now. I can't just go, well, I'll do this later when we're through all of this.
I'll just wait.
I'll just wait. Wait is not an option here. I'm in the moment of you got to do something about this right now. And so I got off the phone with her and I'm like, in bankruptcy, can't get a loan. Check that off. Maybe I can get some kind of a job. Nope, check that off. I can't make dinner in 3 hours. So, okay, check that off. Hubby, no, hubby is barely sleeping between full-time job and full-time grad school and taking care of me because he's the one making dinner now and taking care of the stuff. Okay, check that off. So it's not going to come that direction. What are my options? Insurance company is gone. Now, I was raised by a German and a Norwegian and told very strictly that when I turned 18, I would be providing for myself. That's how that worked. Yes, I was welcome to stay at home, but I would pay rent, or I could choose to pay rent someplace else, but you will provide for your stuff. Don't expect to move back to the house or any of that kind of thing. We're not having basement children. Okay. All right. And so, I did that, but I thought to myself, perhaps this might be the one exception to that policy. And so I called my dad and explained the circumstances. Not just that the insurance was out, but that I can barely function. I will die if I don't get this treatment. My husband is not sleeping with what he's taken on. There's no way we can bring in additional money. And even if we do, there's the bankruptcy
Right.
trustee with its hand out. And so I asked him to help. Could you help me, get into and through this protocol? And I don't know if it'll end up being all of it, but at least I have to get to a point where I can, function and get a job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the bank of dad was empty. And that night was one of the most difficult moments in my life. And I went to bed with my husband that night. As I mentioned, I'm not able to sleep normally at this time. I've discovered that if I can meditate a little bit, it helps me. And I feel more refreshed in the morning, even though I haven't gone through sleep cycle. But that night, meditation was not an option. My brain was like this trapped squirrel, and it is bouncing off all of the walls, all of the things, and I don't see any way out.
Mm-hmm.
No way out. I'm barking up all of the same trees, hitting all the same dead ends, and there are no new avenues appearing for me. And it was around 3 a.m. that I don't know how to describe it, surrendered, resigned myself, that I did not have the answer to whatever this is. But maybe I could have a conversation with God, and maybe He would have an answer. Now, this is a big step for me because I haven't talked to Him in decades,
Mm-hmm.
mostly because of that childhood that I mentioned previously. And I got to thinking about what I knew and understood about God as opposed to what I'd been raised to understand and know about God. And I decided that I was going to go with what I understood about God as opposed to all the Old Testament hell, fire,
Mm-hmm.
brimstone, send people to hell, make war, sacrifice your children kind of garbage that's in the Old Testament. I decided that was not God. And what I knew of God was love, understanding, caring, compassion, and absolutely sends no one to hell. Okay. Now, that would make me heretical to the religion of my childhood, but that's what I knew inside of myself. And I decided that is the God I'm going to have my conversation with. And I said, God, because that's the only name I really knew and understand for that energy. I will do anything to get better. And I meant it with the entirety of my being, no reservations. And I got my answer immediately in the form of a little voice that said, really, anything? And I thought on that for a good long moment too. Because anything doesn't have any guardrails on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about my edges. And again, about what I understand about God. And my edges are, I believe in treating people fairly. I believe in being upfront and honest, giving them the same respect that I would expect. I believe in being fair. And I don't think that the God I know and understand is going to ask me to lie, cheat, steal, axe murder. I don't think that a loving God is going to ask for any of that. Old Testament to the side. So, to be very clear, I said, God, for you, I will do anything. And I got my first miracle because I fell asleep. And I woke up in the morning with the clarity that I had to get one of these clearing IVs. $250. No idea how I'm paying that sucker, but I got to go get one. And the good news is medical debt is patient debt. So, okay. I went in and I got my infusion. And as I'm sitting in the infusion room, the doctor walked in, which is like not a thing that happens.
Right.
This is the nurse's territory. So I waved him over and explained my circumstances, the conversation with, the insurance company, with Dad, the bankruptcy, all the things. And it's like, I am a cash pay client. What are my options? Okay. And if you're in one of these circumstances, I want you to remember that question, because there are options for cash pay clients that are not made available to insurance clients. And they are oftentimes different pricing schedules. They are oftentimes financing plans. Remember that question. Insurance is out of the picture. I'm a cash pay client. What are my options? And he said, well, he smiled. He brightened up. I'm like, really? I went, whoa, why is this a happy thing?
Yeah, why are we getting excited right now?
Yeah, exactly. He says, good, then you have more options. Oh, now there was another mind shift for me. I have more options. Insurance is handcuffs. Mm-hmm. If you've heard one thing here, remember that insurance is handcuffs. And I said, okay, cool, Leo, what are those options, right?
Let's hear them.
Brave new world. He says, well, we have a naturopath herbalist who's on staff. Insurance would never cover a visit to him. Mm-hmm. But his office visits are half of what mine are. Like, oh, okay, now we're starting to talk, because now I'm paying his full bill, which is almost $300 a meeting. Okay, so that's an improvement. We'll take that. And he says he's got an amazing track record with parasitic infections, which, FYI, conventional medicine sucks at parasitic infections and a lot of times won't recognize it. Mm-hmm. So another note to self to put on your list of mystery things to explore. Great track record with parasitic infections, which is what Lyme disease is. And frequently it comes with other infections. Mm-hmm. Another interesting thing that we learned. And he treats it with herbs, which are like $30 to $40 a bottle. Now, this is still a ton of money for me, but it's a heck of a lot less than a $250 IV. Mm-hmm. And so, okay, we're heading the right direction. We're heading a direction that looks more manageable. Fabulous. Now, this is nothing I would have ever considered if I'd had the cash to pay for the IVs.
Right.
Okay. Keep that in mind. I would have never considered this scientific, rational, 2 + 2 = 4, replicatable. Herbalist doesn't generally fall in that category.
Right. Like, I'm not taking herbs for this. Are you crazy?
Are you? Yeah, this thing is going to kill me. What am I going to take? Oregano, really?
Right. I'm going to sprinkle some basil in there and
what? And so, okay, fine. I don't have any other option. This is going to be my most accessible thing. I've got nothing to lose trying it and everything to lose if I ignore it. So I made an appointment with him. And as I'm sitting in his waiting room, I've been told he's running late that day because he spends as much time as he needs with his patients. Fine. And so I'm looking for something to read. And there are all these crappy magazines that I'm not interested in. And then there's this book. Yeah. When scientists marry, they have libraries. So book is right up my alley. So I went and picked that up to see what it was. And on the cover, it says The Emotion Code. I mentioned the German and Norwegian upbringing. Mm-hmm. And if you know anything about Germans and Norwegians, emotionals are verboten. There's no emotional anything happening.
Not allowed.
No,
happening. Press
it down. Mm-hmm. The only thing you're allowed is maybe a little bit of happy or thankful, and not too much. Mind you, you got to keep that low key. Not too much gratitude or thankfulness. And so what I had been taught was just push it down and press on regardless. Make like it didn't happen. Do the damn thing and don't worry about any of the emotional stuff. Now, that had landed me in a great deal of talk therapy. This is how I know that they cut you off at about 20 sessions.
Right.
And so I was interested, and I'm starting to read this book. The owner comes back for it, and I'm like, oh, damn it. Now I got to go find a way to get this book. Library card.
Right.
And so the book is part of the reason I was here. This is usually the point, excuse me, how to clear my throat again. This is usually the point at which I get really excited about my journey, and I forget to tell you that this guy cured my Lyme disease with herbs in about 3 months.
Wow.
Okay. So I'll put that out there so I don't forget to mention it, because then I tend to get emails later going, I have this guy. It's like, I don't need your guy. I'm good.
Right. No. We're good here.
We're good. So the owner came back for the book. I had to get the book, and I'm going through the book. And one of the things I liked about it was that it was very systematic. Scientist likes that. And it used muscle testing, which, while it's kind of a woo phenomenon in some ways, scientifically it's a black box, which I'm okay with black boxes. When a scientist talks about a black box, it means there's a process in there that we don't understand, but we do understand that this input gets us reliably this output. And so we're okay with that. That's replicatable and that's acceptable to us. So muscle testing worked for me, even though I can't tell you how or why it works. I can prove that it will get me to truth. Okay. So I'm willing to work with that. Baby steps, right? And so I'm going through this book and I'm releasing all this old shit that's been unprocessed. Okay. And I'm feeling pretty good about this. This is working well. And I get to the section of the book. Now notice I'm using it as an instruction manual. And I'm actually doing the thing. I'm not just reading it. I'm playing along at home and completely doing the thing. And he's got a section on heart walls. Now, when I saw the section, I'm like, I got one of those. I don't even have to muscle test that. I know for a freaking fact I have one of those. It's been a survival mechanism that I've used all my life. And he made a good case for taking it down. So, all right, I'm going to put that on the list because, again, systematic project manager. I've determined how many trapped emotions I have. How long it's going to take me to clear them out at 10 a day, which is like the most you can do. And so Heartwell goes on the list, and it goes to the front of the list, as a matter of fact. So I'm taking it down. And as I'm systematically taking this down, my sensitivity is going up. Okay, I've always been sensitive. Lassie, I couldn't watch Lassie as a child because Timmy's in the well and she's trying to communicate with these humans that don't speak dog, and Timmy might die if they don't get it. Okay, this is more than I can take. I'm a very sensitive person. I cry at Hallmark commercials and long distance. Oh, yeah, I'm a mess. Okay, don't do horror movies. No. This is more than I could deal with. So I'm sensitive to start with. And it's getting much worse to the point that it's hard to walk into like a grocery store or Walmart, because it's like walking into a rock concert that's at 100% volume. They're in full performance crescendo mode. And it's like this physical hit of energy as I'm walking into this place. And that's kind of new. I don't know quite what to make of that yet, but I know that it's hard. And I've also noticed that I'm feeling a lot more of what's going on with other people and recognizing that that is what's happening. And I think it has something to do with this heart wall stuff. And then I'm noticing that I'm seeing things. Now, the scientist is not very happy about this. I'm seeing crossed over dead people. I'm seeing angels. I'm seeing, the devas of the plants and fairies. And like, okay. You might want to be a little careful about who you share this with. They're going to send the guys with the coat and the wraparound sleeves. Okay.
Right.
You know, you've got more, you're rocking more brain damage here than you realize. So I'm like discounting this and
Mm-hmm.
writing these things off. And then I spontaneously said a prayer in Hebrew. Raised in Minnesota. I think there are a grand total of 10 people who practice Judaism in the entire state. There's enough for one shul. Okay. So it's not like this is something that I osmosed because I was raised in a section of New York where that happens all. No.
Right.
No. This is not part of my life experience in this life. Don't really have much of an explanation for that, except that maybe I heard it once when I was in undergraduate and I took a comparative religion thing. We had a Seder. I might have heard it once. The odds of me remembering a prayer in a language I never studied and heard only once, phenomenal. But that was the explanation that the scientist went with. You do have a pretty good memory. It may have survived. Okay, fine. So that's the explanation for that one. I'm also a people watcher. And so I tend to watch people when I'm out and waiting, and it's my hobby. I love the DMV. Everyone hates it because you sit there for hours. I love it because I can watch all the people. And so you'll see somebody make a decision, and every now and again you'll go, well, I wonder what led them to the point that that was a logical choice, because to me makes zero sense. And I ask these questions in my mind. I'm like, I wonder what led them to that as the choice. And now I'm getting the answer to that question. I'm seeing everything that led up to the moment that that is the logical choice for them, which is like TMI.
Right.
Major sort of way. It was an idle question. I wasn't really looking for the answer to that. And so all of this weird stuff is happening, and I'm continuing to discount and write it off. And at some point, your guides go, all right, scientist, you need documented evidence of what's happening. We're going to give it to you. And it arrived. I came home from the grocery store that afternoon, and I see my neighbor struggling under her husband's weight, trying to get him into the house. They're in their mid-80s. She is a very frail woman. He's much larger than she is, so the ice cream can melt. Let's get him in the house and see what we can do to help. And as I'm helping them in the house, she says, I'm going to go make an appointment with the kidney doctor because it's gotten so bad. I hope they can get us in on an emergency basis. I'm so worried for him. And I'm like, you do that. I will stay here with him, keep him company. And there's not anything you can really do to make him comfortable. Kidney pain is kidney pain. It's not going away. Now, I've had a backache for several days and not understood why. I'll just throw that out there. Y'all can make your own conclusions on that. And so I'm standing with him in the living room and holding his hands. And he closes his eyes. I can see his lips are moving. I know them both to be very devout people. They are what I would call the best kind of Christians. They have that personal relationship with God. They help everyone in the world in a generous sort of way. There's no judginess. There's no, you have to be like us or know or believe the way we are. Just very wonderful, generous people. And so I know he's having a conversation with God. And I feel super awkward just kind of watching him do this.
Right.
I may be a people watcher, but I'm not a voyeur. And so I closed my eyes, and in my mind's eye, I saw this little tiny flame. It looked like a pilot light that's on the edge of going out. You know how they kind of dance and pop and flicker right before they go. And I'm given this knowing, this understanding, that that is exactly where he is with his life force right now. I have not acknowledged who I'm talking to. I'm pretty sure the scientist is not the one that asked this question. But I asked, is there something we can do about that? And the instant I thought that question, that flame roared into this huge bonfire. I don't know how big it got because he dropped my hands. And so my eyes flipped open. And he says, "Are you a healer?" And I'm looking around to see who he's talking to because this has not entered my world. Scientist, 2 + 2 = 4, rational, replicatable, logical, and this is none of that. And his wife saved me from having to answer because she came back saying that she'd gotten the emergency appointment, but they had to leave right now. I'm like, hallelujah.
Saved.
Saved. So we hustle him out to the car, and I go and I hide in my house for 2 days. Took me 2 days to convince myself that nothing had happened and that I was an extremely bad neighbor. Raised in the Midwest, if your neighbor is in distress, you shovel their walk, you bring them casseroles, you do the thing, right? And I've done none of that. And I've convinced myself that he's in intensive care, or worse yet, she's planning a funeral, and I've done nothing to help or support her in her time of trouble. So I guilted myself back next door. And I was kind of encouraged because the car was in the driveway when I went next door. So, okay, she's home. She's at least not either of those other 2 places. Tapped on the door, and she answers with a big smile on her face. I go, "Oh, fabulous. Okay, so probably not planning a funeral." We could maybe check that one off the list. Theoretically, she's probably not planning a funeral. And how you doing? "Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Jay has so many questions for you." And my stomach sank through my feet because I've convinced myself ain't nothing happened. Nothing weird has gone on. And I've knocked on the door, so I got to go in at this point. I'm committed. So I go in, and there he is in the living room. He's kicked back in his Barca lounger. He's got his drink and his remote and the TV and a book, and he's looking fat and happy. And I go, "Okay, so how you doing, Jay?" He says, "It was the weirdest thing." "What do you mean?" "By the time I got to the doctor's appointment, I was feeling pretty good. And they ran me through the whole battery of tests that they always run me through. And my kidney function came back normal." And that was the moment that the scientist had to sit down and shut the fuck up. Because this guy was stage 4, like dialysis and the whole business. And if you talk to a medical professional, they will tell you there is one direction kidney disease goes. And so that was the moment that it's like, okay, I think maybe we have the answer to what is the anything I've agreed to. And I need to look back on what has been going on over the past few weeks and maybe look at that in a slightly different light. So that's my story of how I arrived in the woo world, and I came kicking and screaming with great resistance.
But what has that done for you?
What has it not done for me? Okay. Because honestly, I was listening to my intuition before I even arrived at this waking up moment. Okay, which is part of what that shit sandwich brought for me. If we're going to count gifts that came out of the shit sandwich, and it was, I lost money, I lost all kinds of things in that period. And I think one of the important stories that comes out of that, right? If you've been praying for something big to arrive in your life, if you've been seeking, if you've been manifesting for something huge to arrive in your life. And I had been praying for that because we had a mountain of debt that I wanted out from under. I wanted to be able to work in a way that was supportive to me. It was a lot of big asks that I had because we were like 1.1 million upside down when we went into that bankruptcy. Okay. So there's always a way out. Your hands have to be empty to receive that. And so the first step, a lot of times, to receiving those kinds of manifestations is a lot of stuff goes away to make space for it. I'm just going to let you sit with that for a second. If you've got a big ask, sometimes there's a lot of things that need to go away to make space for it. So when things start to go away, relax into it. I know it's counterintuitive. It's not the thing you want to do. You want to hold on. You want the sameness to kind of stay because we're wired that way as humans. So when you see yourself doing that, don't beat yourself up. Just go, yes, Zofia told me I was going to have this initial reaction. I'm going to take a great big breath and I'm going to get curious. I love that. Curiosity has been a huge key for me. It helps me to allow my busy intellectual mind to sit off to the side and observe for a minute. When we get curious, we observe. And so get curious about where this is going, because the big thing you're asking for is arriving. It may not look the way you think it's going to look. It may not arrive the way that you think it's going to arrive, but it is arriving, and get curious about how it's showing up. So that would be the first thing I would share with you. You save yourself a lot of stressing if you just go, I know it will all be okay. And I can hear other like logical, rational people out there going, oh, it's not going to be okay. It can go sideways in so many ways. I will grant all of that. But a lot of times sideways of what you need to get to where you're going. Okay. And I have evidence for you that it will all be okay. Because guess what? You've been through shit before. And some of it sucked really, really bad. But guess what? You're still here. You're still at it. And you've got another opportunity to take that next step into the thing that's better for you, that is more empowered for you, that is more supportive for you. So work on appreciating the thing that brought you here, even though it was sucky. Okay. And I know that's a big ass. I have an abusive ex-husband. Okay. And it's taken me a minute, more than a minute. It's just about 3 decades now.
So like 5 minutes.
To get to the point that I can look back at that marriage, I can look back at all of the interactions that we had and the things that I learned going through that and go, I am grateful for the gifts I took out of it. Yeah, it sucked. It'll never change the fact that it sucks. It will never change the fact that some things that happened in that marriage were very, very wrong. And that has to be okay too, because I survived it. And I don't have to continue to take it just because I've forgiven and can appreciate. I don't have to welcome him back into my world. That's not what forgiveness is about. Forgiveness is about opening the door to that cage and letting myself out. And so I have done that. And so be patient with yourself. This isn't something you sit down this weekend and go, okay, I am going to forgive my ex for, okay. You can start this weekend, absolutely. You can make some big strides this weekend, probably. But it's a process. And so be patient with yourself as you begin down that road of appreciating what went before, because appreciation does bring in the good stuff. That you don't have to appreciate all of it. I do not appreciate the manipulation and the abuse that went on. I will never appreciate that. I will appreciate that I found my self-esteem and my worthiness as a human being. And I will appreciate that I found the strength to say I don't have to take this shit, and stopped taking the shit. I can appreciate that I have learned that you can love someone and not be with them. And that's okay too. And so it's about appreciating the things you pulled out of it. And it's about recognizing those things in yourself. A lot of times, I know for myself, I had to learn to recognize the good things that were in me, because I was raised with your shit
Right.
You will always be shit no matter how much you try. I mean, it's part of that religious abuse situation.
Mm-hmm.
God is the only worthy one, and he'll let you be worthy if you believe in him, and that's kind of the only way out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's not the only way out. And you are valuable as you are. You are worthy as you are. You are lovable as you are. Um, and the truth of the matter is, and one of the main things that I do with my clients now is we get rid of all the crap, all the mind programs and social things that you were raised with that say that you are not good enough, that you are not worthy, that you are not lovable, all of that stuff you've been trained and ingrained into you all of these years. We peel that away to find that beautiful, shiny diamond core of you that is beautiful and worthy and lovable and enough all on its own. Because guess what, sweetheart? You are part of the divine. When they say God is omnipresent, I now understand that as God is literally everything, every person, every animal, every atom that is in this world is God. It is all part and parcel of God, source, energy, universe. And that includes you. Let that sink in. That includes you. You are enough. You are perfect. You are worthy.
I think that's where we're gonna end this moment. I
There's
think
so much more we can discuss, but yeah.
there is, and you know, parts 2 through 7, we're gonna have to get on the schedule.
We can absolutely do that.
I'm definitely into that. But you know, I want to respect your time and honor everything that you have to do. So we're gonna wrap it up here in a minute.
Well, and we now have like this hugely long. I have not been watching the clock at all.
It's okay. I have, but I can't. I just couldn't stop you. So
well, and here's the thing, right? They've got a pause button. You
right,
know,
exactly.
there are no demerits for using the pause button if you've got to, go to a meeting and come back to it later. It's good.
It's going to be here. It's going to be here. So before I let you go, what we're going to do is take a left turn here. And I have spent most of the year in long sleeves. So people who are watching this on YouTube have not seen me in short sleeves very much this year, which is odd. But if I were in short sleeves, I would have a lot of tattoos visible because I love tattoos. I feel like they tell a story. I feel like for me, they represent times in my life and circumstances and situations that are meaningful to me or that I was able to overcome. I know that you do not have any tattoos, and it's not one of the traditional barriers, I think, which are pain or, you know, I just don't want to walk around with something on my neck for the rest of my life, which I respect. You haven't found something that would be incredibly meaningful to you that you would want to carry around, whether it's on your neck or some other part of your body. But let's say that you were going to get a tattoo. What would you get?
Hmm. I think, and I've sat with this for a moment because you asked me this almost 2 hours ago. So I've given it a whole 2 hours worth of thought. Because up to this point, as you mentioned, I've not found anything that it's like, yes, I will identify with that all my life. I'm one of these people, I didn't even like my name when I was young. Okay. And in fact, after I awoke, I spent some time with what is my name. And you now have what is my actual name, what arrived to me, not the one that I was given at birth. And so I haven't found anything that I identified with so strongly that it's like, I have to put that on my body. And in fact, I don't think even I would go with, oh, I had this experience and it was the making of me, and I'm going to put that symbol on my body. Because my business is helping people release themselves from those stories.
Mm-hmm.
And while there are beautiful aspects of, I went through this difficult thing and I've survived, and not just survived, but thrived past it, there is a limit still that you put in your life when you box yourself into that story. So I don't think it would be something like that. I do think, however, I have discovered a few things about my soul's, not just soul's purpose in this world, but my higher self. We have higher selves in my understanding, may not be yours, that on the other side, we have callings, professions, if you will. And mine is what is commonly described as Akasha, which is Akashic records. It's the records of all the lives that everybody's lived, all the experiences that we've had. And I'm part of that planning aspect. And technically, that is angelic. And so I think probably if I were to get a tattoo, it would probably be angel wings, traditionally placed.
I love it. And I have recently seen, probably on Instagram, somebody that had angel wings on her back, like her entire back. So
yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
yeah.
It wouldn't be like 2-inch angel wings.
Right.
It would be like shoulders to hips kind of thing. Yeah.
See, I love it. Go big or go home. I love it.
I think that's the only thing that I identify with strongly enough that I would be willing to put on my body.
Let's do like a temporary version.
Oh, I do temporary versions all the time. I love the sparkly temporary versions.
Okay.
I love those.
I want to see full size angel wings on your back, even if just for 2 weeks. I think it'd be amazing.
I don't know if you can get the temporary tattoos that size, but the blingy silver ones,
right.
I would be totally into that. If anyone knows how to get those kind of temporary tattoos made, let me know. I want to know, because I will totally do that thing.
I have to check the size, but there is a company who should sponsor me, because I mention them a lot.
Well, and you should have that conversation with them.
So Momentary Ink, I'm coming for you. But there is a company called Momentary Ink. I will look into the sizes, but they have some pre-made designs, but you can actually design your own temporary tattoo. So I will look into that for you.
I am feeling that. I'm looking forward to this information.
So we're going to find out.
And hearing about your new sponsorship.
Yes. So that's coming very soon.
We're gonna speak that.
I love it. Momentary Ink for you. I'll even do a temporary tattoo on my neck.
Excellent. We'll have matching angel wings.
I love it. Zofia, where can people find you? So if they, want to talk to you about turning their most painful life experiences into gold, if they want to take that shitty wrapping paper that has been put around something in their life, but has that wonderful present inside of it that they can still find, or if they want to tell you how to cure your Lyme disease, even though you've already cured it because they weren't listening.
It's easy to blip over that part of the story.
Then where can they find you?
I have 2 doors into Zofia land. The first one is an indirect door. If you're one of these people who likes to kind of lurk around the edges and get to know a body before you connect more closely, you might enjoy this one. I created the What is Your Number One Spiritual Superpower quiz to help people see and understand their personal giftednesses, because it's easy to overlook your personal giftedness because you're seeing everybody else's. And you can't read the label on your own bottle. You're inside your bottle, the label's facing out.
Right.
So this is a way to get an idea of what your bottle is. And so you can start to recognize and affirm those gifts and those skills when they show up in your life. And you can find that quiz at superpowerquiz.us. Takes a couple of minutes to go through the quiz. You get your result, and all kinds of wonderfulness happens. Like you learn more about yourself and your giftedness, and you end up on my email list. And hello, welcome to Zofia Land. You can lurk around as long as you'd like.
Love it.
The other option is you can go through the front door and go, I need help now, or I just have to connect with you, or whatever the thing is. And you can find that at bookzofiacoffeechat.com. So that's BOOKZOFIA coffeechat.com. It's a very non-traditional spelling of Zofia. Bookzofiacoffeechat.com. I do a free 20-minute conversation. And basically what we do is we look at what's going on in your world. I look at your soul contract. That's your plan for this life blueprint, whatever you'd like to call it. And so that's the life lessons you came for, the skills you brought to deal with it, and the goals, the things that light you up, the directions you planned ahead. And we have that conversation, and you leave with a plan. One you can execute on your own, or you can join in a plan with me and be accompanied through the plan. And it's a no strings attached conversation. Either way, you leave with something that's helpful for you.
My one question about the superpower quiz is, do I get a cape?
You have to provide your own cape, but you'll know what color to pick afterwards.
Love it. Love it. All right. So I'm going to go run and do that now. Zofia,
Beautiful.
You have been absolutely amazing. I so appreciate your time today and all of the valuable information that you shared to all the listeners and viewers about how they can turn the shit sandwich into something good.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to hit that subscribe button and find us on the socials so that you don't miss anything strong enough. So remember, until next week, you are strong enough, you are worth it. Thank you for listening to the Strong Enough podcast. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform by searching Strong Enough. And on YouTube, we're on the Spear Talk channel. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Strong Enough Pod. If you have suggestions for an upcoming episode or a future guest, please reach out at strongenoughpod@gmail.com. Remember, you are worth it.